I think I'll be really proud of just the way that I listened to my heart and I pursued my passion and really connected with myself and with my community and kind of stayed true to myself. I think I'll be really proud of that and really proud of all the work that Mike and I put into my dream and having that culminate, but hopefully not end by any means, in becoming an Olympian.
Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. This episode is brought to you by SuperCoffee, the healthy, delicious alternative to sugary coffee drinks. SuperCoffee was recently named the fastest growing food and beverage brand in America by Inc. magazine, and after tasting a bunch of their flavors, I can see why. Their coffees contain zero sugar, and many of them contain 10 grams of plant-based protein. They're growing in popularity in the running community, and I'm excited to share a special discount with you. They offer a 60-day money-back guarantee, meaning if you don't love it, you get your money back, no questions asked. Grab 15% online with the code FTLR, or look for them nationwide in 25,000 stores like Target, Whole Foods, Walmart, Kroger, and CVS. Cheers. Have you guys heard of Beam? I have been absolutely loving their products lately. Beam is a CBD company that's making waves in the running world by offering products that combine THC-free CBD with other high-quality ingredients. It was founded by two ex-professional athletes with the idea that everyone should have the chance to experience what better feels like. Whether you're sore or stressed, Beam is key for recovery and self-care. Try it for yourself with 15% off using the code FTLR from beamtlc.com. I recommend Beam Dream Powder or the Focus Capsules. Welcome back. I have Rachel Schneider joining me on the podcast today. Rachel, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So the first question is always a tough one. Who is Rachel?
Well, could be a really short and a very long answer, but which version do you want?
Let's start with the short one and then go into the long one.
I am a human lucky to live in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Very cool. And you happen to be a human runner, which is why we're having this chat today. How long have you been in Flagstaff now?
Gosh, I moved here full time 5 years ago, almost to the day, and have spent a fall out here before that and a summer out here before that, just doing some altitude training stints. But have been, lucky to call this place home for 5 years now.
Very cool. It's a very beautiful place for those who haven't been. I've been in the summer and the dead of winter, so I need to, and actually also the fall. So I guess I need to experience spring out there.
Yes. It's a very windy season, but it's beautiful in its own way.
Very cool. So you have an interesting story about getting into pro running. We were connected from Jamie, who used to be over at Under Armour and is now over at SuperCoffee. And it sounded like you were working at a run shop in DC. And I don't want to tell the story. Can you tell the story?
Oh, yeah. So I was probably about, 8 months out from finishing my eligibility at Georgetown and was working at the Georgetown Running Company and also working a few other part-time jobs just to make ends meet while also finishing my grad degree at Georgetown. So when I finished my eligibility at Georgetown, I had run some good times, but kind of went out on a note where I wasn't going to be sponsored by companies or pursued by agents. So that was okay with me actually at the time. I think I needed to do some self-exploration and make sure that I really wanted to pursue running at a high level without feeling obligated to or any external pressure, and felt really called to continue competing at a high level and seeing how good I could be. So fast forward those 8 months working at Georgetown Running Company, and some people at Under Armour who were pretty high up came into the store to kind of see how they wanted to use some of our retail space for some of their upcoming products that were going to be launched in the run world. So I was talking to them and Anyways, long story short, I was connected to Under Armour through that way and ended up getting a small sponsorship through talking to them at the store, and was also running really well at that point. Just got third at the USA Indoor National Championships, and then signed with them and missed making the world team by like 0.01 a few months later. Everything kind of came together at once.
Very cool. Well, I want to dive into more of that exploration of what you were talking about 8 months post collegiately, where you were deciding if you wanted to run at a competitive or high level. What did those conversations look like? Was that internal? Was that, were you chatting through it with someone? How did that process evolve?
Mainly internally. I think I'm pretty introspective and kind of have always been pretty good at listening to my heart and pursuing what I feel called to in life and what interests me. So I loved my time running for Georgetown and was still very much in love with the sport, but also felt like I could use a break after my collegiate career ended, and enjoyed going back up to Maine and spending time with my family and friends and doing some of the other things that give me life, like hiking and camping and just, yeah, checking out from an elite running world for a little bit. And then at the end of that summer, I was really excited about getting back into a training routine and rhythm. So that's when I kind of knew. I was like, yeah, I'm not done. I'm going to keep training and see where that takes me.
Do you now try and bundle things like that into either your training or more into an off season?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, but I would definitely say that I have an off season every year that is very important for me, and just being able to both refresh and rejuvenate both my mind and my body. So I really think having some built-in downtime to, yeah, to kind of just step away and come back feeling both excited and rested and restored is a good thing for me.
For sure. So I guess what I was getting at there is introducing things outside of just running into either the training cycle where like you have a cross train day or you have a day to go explore or whatever, or more substantially like in the off season doing what you're saying where it's like I'm going to go hiking for a couple of days this week or camping or something like that.
Totally. Most of my weeks, I have one day a week where I either take the day completely off or just run a few easy miles or cross train. And that is like such a good day for me. Again, both to physically and mentally kind of rejuvenate for the week. So, yeah, I definitely have some friends who don't feel confident, or I don't know, don't like taking a day off, but I kind of love my off day.
Has it always been the case like that for you, or has that been an evolution of being able to take that day off and feel good about it?
I think it's probably always been the case. I kind of like to have a little bit of balance in my life and feel that it's actually a beneficial part of my training week rather than, feeling like I've got to push all the time.
Do you feel like you're unique in that, being a pro athlete and having a day like that?
I'm not sure. I guess I probably don't know enough of the ins and outs of everyone's schedules and training routines and mentality, but I would guess that most runners would say that they value recovery and rest, and we it might look different for all of us, whether that's like a day completely off or something else, but I don't know. It'd be an interesting research.
For sure. So my genesis as a runner has been like I've been allergic to rest days, and then jokingly and then not so jokingly started the Rest Day Brags Instagram account. And so it like went from, not wanting to take a day off, and I was training, as like a 22, 23, 24-year old, like new runner 7 days a week. And like, no, I can't take a rest day. I'm not a serious runner if I, do that, to realizing that like that's absolutely ridiculous and you need rest. And then joking with a friend and her coach, who then became my coach, about like, why are we glamorizing just the hard days? Why don't we
Yeah.
brag about, how easy we can take it on our recovery days?
Yeah. I love that you've kind of gotten a taste of that, because I see that too. It's like we all want to make hard days heroic, and how many hard days and hard efforts can you throw into the week? But I think rest and recovery, both physically and mentally, is a huge component of training. And I'm always really admire people who can know when they need that and do it confidently.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's like trusting in the process includes trusting the recovery part of the process.
Yes.
So backing it up a little bit, do you remember your first run
Oh wow, ever?
ever? First run ever?
Probably not. I have vivid memories though of watching my older sister and my two older brothers run and going to their like junior high track meets and wanting to be able to do exactly what they were doing. So like getting excited about running. I do remember the first time I went for a run from my house and it was 2 miles and my dad and my sister went with me and yeah, I was really excited. I probably ran way too fast, but it was kind of this milestone of they're actually letting me go for a run with them and out on the road.
And then what was the genesis from there? You started running faster and longer, but what did that process look like?
So it developed alongside soccer for the majority of my childhood up into freshman year of high school was predominantly focused on soccer, was on sports teams year round in Sanford for soccer. But my sister, so let's see, from that first run, I did a summer track program in my town that my sister was the coach of, and that was just super fun. You know, practices pretty much consisted of playing capture the flag and red light, green light, and just keeping joy and fun at the heart of all of that. And then when I got into junior high, that was kind of my first team experience, first track team experience. And yeah, from there, the love for it just continued to grow and grow to the point where probably about halfway through high school, I realized I could do it in college and wanted to pursue that. So yeah, I started taking it a bit more seriously about halfway through high school.
So what was that reflection or awareness like that, oh, this is something I'm actually pretty good at?
I suppose it was probably when college coaches started recruiting me that I realized I could, compete at the Division 1 level and get a scholarship at most schools. So that was kind of when that started permeating my mind.
Was it just like a, yes, of course I'm going to run in college, or was it something that you had to consider?
Oh, I definitely considered it. Yeah, none of my older siblings did any sports in college, so I guess I hadn't really been introduced to that from them or from anyone that I knew. So it was something I definitely contemplated and knew it would be, a big time commitment in college and would probably, mean some big sacrifices. Like I'd always seen myself doing study abroad or things that, joining clubs or probably other aspects of college that would not be conducive to being a serious D1 runner. So I spent some time thinking about what level I'd want to do it at and what I wanted it to look like before committing.
Very cool. So you're 30 years old. You are still running. I just turned 31. So somebody made a joke about 30s being old. And I was like, this is absolutely not true. You're not allowed to say that. So with that context, but also framed around you've been running for a while, why are you still doing it?
I love it. And it's funny because more often than that question, people will ask, how long do you think you'll do it? And I
You
always
took my
say,
next question.
yeah, I was
No,
gonna
I'm
say
kidding.
I'll
I'm
just hit
kidding.
them both at the same time. I've again like kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation, just have always been pretty good at listening to my heart, and as long as I love it, then I'll continue to do it. But the moment where it feels more like work to me, then and the sacrifices start feeling really heavy, then I think it's time to have it take on a different role in my life. So I'm still doing it at this level because there's so much about it that I'm still really, really drawn to and I love, and I find a lot of joy and gratitude in it on a daily basis. So,
I love that. I had a conversation with Stephanie Garcia about transitioning out of track and into trail and OCR. And she spoke very vividly about a workout she did last Christmas Day where she realized, I'm not having fun anymore. I need to do something different. As a sponsored athlete, that must have been hard realization for her and thing to grapple with, where like this is your livelihood and it's not fun. I had a conversation with Aisha Pratt-Lear last year about pretty much the same thing. She was like, I'm 30 years old and I'm having the time of my life. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
still be doing this if I weren't having fun. And so I think that like that joy and gratitude and fun aspect is so paramount for amateurs to hear professionals talking about, right? Like personally, I didn't hit my marathon goal until I started having fun along the way and like really enjoying the process and being less focused on like a specific outcome. And then it like that outcome that I had been chasing happened, but it wasn't
Awesome.
like it wouldn't have been unsuccessful on that day if that outcome hadn't happened. But the last 4 times I tried to achieve that outcome, it was unsuccessful. I didn't have fun and I didn't learn anything from it. So I think I love when people say this, particularly when professionals say this who are getting paid to perform, but are doing it because of the joy involved. So, talking about how you keep the joy in the training and the process.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think what you just said too is so wise, and people probably the practice of letting go of results and really focusing on the process is so, I think, paramount to actually succeeding and hopefully achieving the goal you set out, but then also feeling so liberated by knowing that even if you don't hit your A goal, that it was all worth it and
Totally.
had so much meaning in it. So it's really cool to hear you share that and have felt that too, because I've totally had similar experiences throughout my career, and it's something I always remind myself of. But yeah, keeping joy in the process, I think, is it's a practice, right? Like some days it feels really easy to lace up the shoes and things just feel like they're clicking and you're running in a beautiful place, and maybe it's with friends and everything just feels positive around you. And then other days it can be like motivation's running low and it's pouring rain outside or who knows what. But ultimately, just to come back to your why you're doing it and to remember that the days that feel hard, like I feel so lucky to have a body that's healthy and to be living in a place that I love, and ultimately getting to do what I love with people that I love. And it's totally a normal part of the process to have days that feel harder or more challenging than others. But I feel so much fulfillment and so much gratitude for being able to get to live my passion on a daily basis.
I love that. Talk to me more about gratitude. I found that to be particularly empowering and powerful in today's day and age when there's so much that we can't control, and being able to control or appreciate certain things emphasizes what really does matter and what we really are able to, I guess, own.
Yeah, gosh, I don't think it can be overstated just how powerful gratitude can be in our lives, and it's become a really central part of my like daily mentality and practice is just to like make sure that I'm really appreciating, the things in my life without taking anything for, or I'm sure I take things for granted, but without taking some really central things for granted, or without letting these days just fly by, because they already go so fast. But to kind of slow down and to appreciate everything that I have that's beautiful in my life, and that I'm privileged to experience and to, yeah, to have is it's a really powerful kind of centering part of my day, is to just slow down and to remind myself like how how grateful I am to be surrounded by so much love, and to get to do again what I love with people that I love in such a wonderful place that I love, is a powerful practice.
So is it an intentional practice, or is it something that you like, do you sit down and okay, I'm going to do a gratitude journal, or I'm going to think about 10 things I'm grateful for today, or is it something you just like find yourself reflecting on as the day goes on?
I actually don't have a gratitude journal or write anything down, but it's a very like present reflection and throughout the day. So yeah, it's a good way to like slow down, because I think in today's era where or at least I've found myself falling trapped to lots of distractions, especially with, smartphones and social media. It's so easy to just kind of like clog our minds from minute to minute if we want to. But just to kind of like take time to like sit and to like be still, I think is so central. I actually thinking of that word still. I read this book kind of at the beginning of the pandemic by Ryan Holiday called Stillness is the Key. And I think in stillness, it's easy to cultivate gratitude and to cultivate a mentality that's actually a little bit healthier and more productive.
Talk to me more about that. For someone who's listening to this and saying, wow, she's like beaming about this practice that she has that sounds so easy. This sounds hard to me. Where would you suggest somebody starts?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I definitely don't think I'm an expert in this by any means, but yeah, just taking moments of stillness and reflecting on, 5 things you're grateful for, or just taking some deep breaths to be present. I started a meditation practice through the app called Headspace. It's I don't probably about 2 years ago, and it's 10 minutes out of my day every day, but it's such a great way to like slow down and to just like focus on breathing and being present and letting thoughts flow through your mind. And that's an intentional practice I do have. And I think that's been huge in kind of fostering more gratitude and more joy and more presence in my life.
That's awesome. So my practice with gratitude was very, I don't want to say regimented, but structured. Prior to the pandemic, I would use a sauna 3 times a week at the end of the workday. And because it's so hot in there, you can't really do anything. And so I would just like think of 10 things and count it on my fingers of things that either happened to me that were like, half of them were like mundane, like small things, and the other half were like big, like things that were paramount in my life. And I feel like splitting it up in that way and having that moment, as you said, of stillness was so important. And it's something that I've like really thought about starting up again because I'm like way too connected like everybody else. And my phone is literally always in my hand. And we need these moments when we can disconnect and just like breathe and think. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, I agree so much. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that can come in waves of sometimes it's really easy to be disconnected from my phone, and other times I'm like I am on this way too much, like, and I can like feel that type of energy kind of taking over more of my mental space than I would like. So I'm still, if you have any tips for like how to like disconnect more regularly, I think those are awesome to share, because I think it's too easy to pick up the phone and just get distracted.
Totally. I found that the best way to disconnect is to actually turn the phone off or put it
Mm,
on airplane mode and disconnect Wi-Fi, because when there's no possible incoming notifications, you don't have that like Pavlovian response of like, oh, the phone's buzzing. I got to figure out what's going on. And like that dopamine loop or feedback loop can't be there. So for me, that's been helpful. I say that like I do it often. I don't, but I should. But when I do, it's fantastic. And the other piece is something you mentioned earlier, but while talking about something else. So I recently moved to Colorado, and the cool thing about Colorado is there are pockets of dead zones where there's no
yeah.
cell coverage. And so I'll, go into the mountains for a few hours and like not have cell coverage. Or I was at an event a couple of years ago, just outside of Boulder at a place called A Lodge. And it's a little bit up the canyon. And as soon as you get within like 200 feet of this place, you don't have cell coverage. And so it's like, it's a forced disconnect, but there's no possible option and you like can't connect. So I find myself like loving and craving these moments when either you're going camping for a weekend and you don't have cell coverage from like Friday to Sunday or Friday to Saturday night or something like that. Like it's just so refreshing.
Totally.
Thanks again to SuperCoffee for supporting this episode. I have been loving their French vanilla and hazelnut flavors and the cold brew cans. SuperCoffee combines the caffeine from 2 cups of coffee with protein and healthy fats to give you hours of focused energy with no jitters or crash. I love it as a strong start to the day. Receive 15% off of your purchase at drinksupercoffee.com/FTLR or use the code FTLR at checkout. I recommend trying one of their variety packs or bundles. If you give it a try, let me know what you think. Thanks again to Beam for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. As the days start to warm up and get longer, a cool down routine in the evening becomes even more important. Did you know that you can get a subscription to Beam's Dream Powder? It's what I use most nights before bed to help with a refreshing night's sleep. When you subscribe, you'll get the Dream Blend with a bunch of perks like even better pricing, free shipping, a free mug, and a drink frother just for signing up. Dream helps me wind down at night, and it's made with compounds like melatonin and magnesium that support a better night's sleep. Make sure to use the code FTLR at checkout for an extra 15% off the already discounted 20% off monthly rate. And now back to our conversation. So one of the other things I wanted to chat about with you was a little outside of running. You're involved from a business perspective with SuperCoffee, and SuperCoffee has been a sponsor of this podcast for a few months now, and their coffee is delicious, particularly the cold brew. It's very caffeinated, but I also like their French vanilla bottles and some of their other flavors. Talk to me about how you got involved with that outside of running.
Oh gosh, I love SuperCoffee. I don't know when they first started, but I think shortly after they started launching their products, one of the brothers, Jim, was a Georgetown athlete, and we had a mutual connection. I think it was through Under Armour and Georgetown. So they were like, oh yeah, they are starting up this SuperCoffee product, and we know that you like coffee, so if you want to connect with them, let me know. And I reached out to them, and they've been so generous in providing me with product ever since. And I think I've had either, whether it's their bottles or their super pods or their cold brew, some form of SuperCoffee almost every single day for the last couple years. And yeah, they're amazing people, amazing product, and yeah, amazing positive energy to start the day.
And you're actually an investor in the company, is that correct?
I am. Yeah. Invested a little bit at the start. Wish I invested more, to be honest. They're killing it, which I knew they would, but at the time I only had a little bit. So I feel really grateful to have been given the opportunity to invest in them at the start and to watch them grow through these last couple of years, because it's been really inspiring to watch the way that they've built this and how they've built it. So it's been fun to have an inside look on that.
Very cool. So I'm fascinated by the athlete brand relationship. I studied sport management in college, and so I find the business side of sports really interesting, to say the least. We recently saw a number of athletes invest in another sports nutrition company. I think a couple of your Flagstaff teammates or Flagstaff neighbors. And we've seen this with a number of other brands as well. So talk to me about that process. And for those who aren't familiar, there are a number of different investor brand relationships. So you can have venture capital, you can have a strategic partner, you can have a few other types of investment made, where some organizations just throw money at a company and others contribute money and strategic guidance, and others there's sort of a hybrid model where there are different objectives with each type of relationship. So talk to me about the, I guess, strategic relationship that you have, or what does that look like? Obviously not sharing, numbers and whatnot, but more the structure.
Yeah, I think what you just said totally nails it on the head. Every company kind of has their own objectives and what they're looking for in partnerships with athletes. So each kind of way that people partner up with companies can be totally different than, the next brand. And it's kind of all figuring out the alignment of the company's objectives with what the athlete kind of envisions as both beneficial and productive for them as well. So yeah, what you said is kind of spot on. Depending on the different objectives of the company, it can kind of transpire and unfold in many different ways. So yeah, it's not very clear cut at all. And I'd also just add to that, like, the way that some of these partnerships form can also look really different. Sometimes it's a company reaching out to an athlete, sometimes it's athlete reaching out to company, sometimes it's third party or through an agency, and it's just totally kind of varies in the ways that these things transpire.
Totally. Like I said, I find it fascinating. And with what I get to do for work, I get to see it from both sides as well. For sort of all sides, like as a fan, as somebody who works for a brand sponsoring athletes, as well as somebody who has a podcast that gets sponsored. It's like I have a very unique perspective on all three different, I guess not the athlete perspective, but it's just fascinating to see how this has evolved over the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, where everything was, entirely results driven prior to social media, and now there's so much more to what an athlete can contribute beyond just, racing well.
Absolutely. It really has evolved, I think, in the last decade, and social media has created this whole different platform for outreach, and that's absolutely got companies' attentions, and understandably so. So it's fascinating to kind of, especially from your three different perspectives, kind of follow along how industries have evolved and adapted to creating different types of partnerships and ambassadorships.
Absolutely. So you have a master's in sport management. Is that correct?
I do, yes, which I feel like I've never used it directly, but a lot of the lessons I've learned from those classes, I know I've indirectly benefited from having taken that program.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like institutional knowledge. Like you don't think that you're applying it, but just in the way that you're making decisions, it's subconsciously driving how you're making those decisions.
So true. So true.
So talking about your own social media presence and how you come to it with telling your story and working with partners and such.
I feel like I am not probably the most professional person to talk to in that, but it's something I try to find balance in of, using my platform to share parts of my story, and trying to do it in as genuine way as possible, and then also to kind of promote and to thank people and companies that have supported my journey this far and allow me to do this in this way. So yeah, it's a balance, and then trying to manage exactly how much time and how much space I give it in my life is always evolving. But yeah, I think some athletes have really poured a lot into their social media presence, and do a great job kind of connecting with their audience. And then others, I think, are probably, like you referred to, as more old fashioned of just really focusing on performance and not feeling like they need to build up a platform for business elements.
Yeah, I think I mean, 10 years ago, it definitely wasn't required. 5 years ago, it probably wasn't required. But today, it's like, what do you mean you don't use social media? And it's a strange dichotomy, right? Because what about the athletes who are just like really, really good at running or competing or whatever, and they're not good at they're not good at social media. I guess they could hire somebody for it, but it's just really interesting how it has evolved over the years, where it's almost become a part of the job.
Yeah, it has. I mean, I've seen that even just I think I'm going into 7 years now being a post collegiate. And in those 7 years, the landscape has really changed in terms of what some companies are putting into their contracts in terms of promotion and social media requirements. And then kind of the emphasis on how that's becoming can be an important piece that companies are looking for when they do their contracts or think about some of the ways they want to move forward.
For sure. Switching to a more timely topic, or I guess a timely topic, talk to me about your experience at Tokyo. What was it like being at the Olympics in 2021?
Oh gosh. So I don't have anything to compare it to because it's my first Olympics. So I guess I could compare it to Doha, but the Olympics is a very different thing. So my experiences, it was incredible. Like getting to experience the athlete village and the competition at that level. And even though the stadiums were empty for the most part, to just see the way that all of this has been so intentionally and magnificently designed for the last, I don't know how many years, but it was really an incredible experience. And while I wish, I could have stayed in Tokyo longer and explored some of the city and gone to different events, and obviously would have loved to have fans filling the stadiums, I was just so enamored by, the whole athlete village and the competition, and so grateful that the Olympics actually happened, and that, they put in so many intentional measures to make sure that we were all staying safe and healthy. I really have a lot of gratitude for the IOC and the Japanese for hosting it. So it's something I'll cherish forever. And part of me still can't believe they already happened, but I just felt so happy to get to be over there and to take part and to compete on that stage.
And you said your first Olympics,
Yes.
which sets up for a second Olympics.
Yep. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. And at the very least, I can tell you, I hope to be in attendance at many Olympic Games in some capacity, even if it's as a super fan / super supporter of other friends and athletes. At some point, I definitely fell in love with the Olympics more after getting to experience them in Tokyo.
For sure. I was in Sochi, and talk about a super atmosphere. So those are the winter games, and that environment was so cool. So hopefully you can, experience it as an athlete again, but even being there as a fan and as a supporter of athletes who are there in some capacity, that was fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah. I would love to be in attendance at a winter games too.
The skeleton was the most utterly outrageous event to see.
I imagine that's like slightly terrifying to watch some of those. Like
It was.
even on TV, I'm always like my adrenaline like spikes so high for them. It's amazing.
I mean, they're going like 100 miles an hour, like head first down an ice luge.
Yeah. The video footage that they can capture of that event it's phenomenal because you almost feel like you're on that with them, and like that's a pretty adrenaline high just watching it.
Yes, but the one piece that watching on TV can't capture is how loud it is. It's just it's so loud.
Yeah, jeez, that's really cool.
So back to Flagstaff. Let's talk about the training environment that you have in Flagstaff. So I've been out there, and it's similar to Boulder in that like wherever you go, you see Olympians. Talking about training in an environment like that where so I've asked this question to a lot of Boulder-based athletes about like the comparison game or whatnot. And Matt Daniels made a comment that Boulder Average is having a shoe sponsor. And he's like, I've run sub 4 in the mile. Like nobody cares. Like many people have run sub 4 in the mile. So talk to me about being in an atmosphere like that where you're surrounded by excellence.
Oh, yeah. Flagstaff it's such a special place. And I never feel like I can adequately articulate how I feel it's personally special. But like you're saying, it's constantly surrounded by people pursuing their crafts at such a high level, whether that's in, track races, marathoning, ultra running, trail racing, mountain running, swimming. Like it's such a pinnacle for people, high performance, seeking to better themselves here. So I definitely feed off that energy of people pursuing excellence. And it's so fun to talk to people from different events and to go for easy runs and sometimes sync up workouts with people from different companies or different teams and people here for altitude camps. So I love that I get to call this place home and kind of feed off the different energies of people coming in and out. But yeah, it's really inspiring. It's inspiring on a daily basis, just in making, me want to also rise up to that. And then, just outside looking in, it's pretty cool to get to be a part of a community where we foster growth, whether it's people starting out their running journey and just getting their first pair of running shoes. There's such an awesome community here that's just gets people excited to try running for the first time. And then, to walking down to a coffee shop and being like, oh yeah, there's an Olympic medalist, and, not have that be out of the ordinary.
Is it ever too much sometimes?
I think it could be. I've actually talked to people about this a little bit. Like, if you don't have things outside of running while living in this community, it probably can feel all encompassing. But my partner and I kind of make sure that we seek things outside of the running world to kind of counterbalance that and not have it be our whole world. So I think I'm pretty good at intentionally coming in and out of an elite running sphere.
I think that's so important. The first podcast I ever did was with Ben Rosario, coincidentally, a neighboring team.
Yeah.
And actually, that interview was done in Flagstaff. And he said, if you don't have things going on outside of running, I feel bad for you. Like, what happens when you get injured? Not if you get injured, when you get injured. Like, if you're training at a competitive level, if you're trying to do your best, no matter what level you're at, you will get injured. So you need these things around you that will be there if you can run or if you can't run. And so the point that he made for him and his athletes is that they must have something. And you look at that team, or you look at any team, there is always so much going on outside of just running. And I think that's a cool thing that we can see through social media, that it's not just run, eat, recover, run, eat, recover. It's, knitting hats, or it's, whatever it is that is keeping you busy in those other times, or keeping you entertained in those other times. Like, that's so important.
Yeah.
And it's like, it sounds so silly to say, and like silly to like say, oh, you got to do things other than just run. But it like, sometimes we all need those reminders, myself included.
I very much agree with that and respect Ben as a coach so much. He's got some incredible philosophies, and I think is really on point with kind of knowing how healthy and how important having outside outlets for just for people's mental well-being is crucial.
Totally. A different topic. Let's say you've fast forwarded 5 to 10 years. What are you really proud of?
So maybe like things that haven't happened yet, or things that have already happened, and I have probably better understanding or perspective on them now that I'm 5 to 10 years even further removed.
Ooh, I like the second way, the latter.
Okay. Yeah, that's easier because I've got so many different dreams and visions for 5 to 10 years in the future that I'm like, oh gosh, who knows what'll actually um, shape up. But, I think 5 to 10 years from now, looking back on, my 20s, I think I'll be really proud of just the way that I listened to my heart and I pursued my passion and really connected with myself and with my community and kind of stayed true to myself. I think I'll be really proud of that and really proud of all the work that Mike and I put into my dream and having that culminate, but hopefully not end by any means, in becoming an Olympian and getting to share our first Olympic experience together is something I think that we'll both really cherish forever, and really just look back on the journey of that and feel a lot of pride in the way that we made that dream come true.
Along those lines, what does success mean to you?
That's such a great question. I love when people ask it in that phrasing too, like, what does success mean to you? And not, like telling you what success is, of, success is the Olympics or X, Y, and Z. Like, it's success should be really personal. And my definition of success is something I regularly check in with, because I think it's a evolving definition. But kind of just what I was touching on, success is staying really true to myself and true to who I am, and focusing on the process of pursuing some of my biggest dreams and goals, and doing that with a lot of love and joy, and trying to do it in a way that uplifts others and hopefully empowers others in some capacity, but really using it as a platform for connection.
If only there were more people that shared that exact ethos and mentality, the world would be a better place. You've talked a lot about the people around you, and running with your family and training partners and coach and partner. What does community mean to you?
I think humans as a species are just so wired for connection. And I think we all feel like we need to feel like we belong and have value. And to be able to have that fostered in a community setting is so empowering and uplifting, and kind of allows like a platform for giving back too. So I really value the community, the both direct community that I feel involved in on a day-to-day basis, which is, right here in Flagstaff, and then the greater community of, the running world and the places that I've come from, whether that's, my background in Maine or Washington, DC. I don't know. I would argue that community and connection to your communities is maybe one of the best currencies or most important currencies in life.
I totally agree. 2020 taught me how extroverted I am and how much I need that and crave that community. And I took a Lyft to the airport in Boulder last week, and I used to take, 2 to 5 a week, particularly when I was traveling. And I just love talking to strangers and talking to people and hearing their stories. And I have a podcast and I've done this 180 times now. And so it's not a surprise by any means. But the guy that picked me up on Friday, we were talking, he's like, I sold my company 5 years ago and I needed to figure out what to do next. I've worked in every coffee shop, every brewery, blah, blah, blah. And I just love driving rideshare because I can have 20 conversations a day and hear from really interesting people and just hear their stories and find out what makes them tick. And he's like, where I start driving, I end up doing a lot of longer rides, to the airport. And our ride was 50 minutes. And so we had an actual interaction versus hey, how's the weather? Oh,
Yeah.
good. How's your day? Good. It's probably not good. Anyone who just says good is, there's a lot more behind that. So I found it so fascinating that this guy is I crave connection so much. And he was so bored that he just started driving for Lyft and just gets to have these conversations and meet people and connect with the community so frequently. And he was like, look, I've had conversations with everyone, Black, white, Asian, literally every demographic, every side of the aisle, every this, every that. He's like, everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to just feel accepted and just feel welcome. It's exactly what you just said before I went on this, 5-minute ramble here. But it's so true. It's that's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
No, I love it. I think it's spot on. How does a person find meaningful connection? And that can look totally different for one person to the next, but trying to live a life where you feel meaningfully connected is so, I would wish that for everyone.
Totally. I could talk about this for hours, but I think that's a good place to wrap. For those who don't follow you yet on social, where can we find you?
Honestly, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Schneider18, which you probably figure out the spelling, but yeah, I'm there. And if anyone's ever in Flagstaff, come find us at the Bagel Run or Buffalo Park or all the places that the community kind of all overlaps.
Peasy Cletta and yes. Dark Sky as well.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yes, I know.
Shout out to Caleb.
Yes, Caleb is the man. I hope to be back there in November, or December, awesome. Or sometime soon. So hopefully see you out there. And thanks for taking the time to chat.
Oh, it's great talking to you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next time on For the Long Run. And in the meantime, happy trails. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too. This podcast and the accompanying music has been produced by Brian Walters of Single Track Sound. For the Long Run's logo was created by Vanessa Wolf of Sterling Wolf.